Hello everybody and welcome back to another Kings of War battle report. I'm Visibly Riley, and while I can't get a battle report in every week because the world is on fire, I was able to get one last week, so let's see what my Empire of Dust can do against these Northern Alliance. This battle was fought at 2300 points and the scenario was Fool's Gold. Lest we forget, I am running a GT at the end of this month. It will be on Universal Battle 2. It is a digital format. It is free, and yes, the special characters are broken. If you want to know more about it, there is a Facebook page, Emerald Dragon GT 2020, that you can go to, or I will be listing the rule packet in the video notes below. Lists are due this Friday. That includes your name, your 2300 point list, plus the battle mage that you choose. Yeah, you got to get those in by Friday to get the extra +1 point. And please do not turn in lists late. But if you really want to go and it's after the 7th, feel free to send me an email anyway. You'll lose the 1 point of sportsmanship that's in my tournament, which is based around turning in your list on time. But otherwise, I can fit you in. I mean, it's a digital tournament. It's not that hard. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's go into my opponent's army. So the Northern Alliance list opens with a Horde of Frostbane Cav with the Mead of Madness, followed by a Horde of Ice Elementals. Then there is a Regiment of Huskarls with the Brew of Haste, a Horde of Snow Trolls with the Chalice of Wrath, a Regiment of Pack Hunters, a Lord on Chimera, Hrim, a Cavern Dweller, two regiments of Snow Foxes, a Thane with the Inspiring Talisman and Talinar's Standard, and finally an Ice Queen with the Conjurer's Staff, Surge 8, and Heal 5. My thoughts on the army, I think it's pretty strong. Northern Alliance is a great faction. There's a lot of list diversity. I prefer to build shooting armies for Northern Alliance. I haven't been able to get one on the table just yet, but all my theory crafting is shooting focused. But yeah, this is just a great bag of hammers here. The only thing that I would really change, as I have played against my opponent's various renditions of this style of list, you know, it's a 12 unit strength or 12 unit count, low unit strength, very elite builds. And the only thing I would change is the Huskarl Regiment. I don't think it fits in this army. I don't think it's necessary. This list has enough meat. It has enough damage output. What it needs is an anvil. It needs something to actually take a charge and set things up for the other hordes in the army. So I would replace those with the Horde of Ice Naiads. The other problem in the list is that there is a Thane and a Lord on Chimera as your totality of normal inspiring. The Lord on Chimera is just going to fly off and the Thane can't be everywhere. So again, swapping out those Huskarls for Ice Naiads will leave you with the Frostbound key trait, which the Ice Queen and Hrim also have very inspiring for. So besides that small change, I think the rest of the army is excellent. All these units are fantastic, so no other changes. Next up, we have my Empire of Dust army, which opens with 2 hordes of Enslaved Guardians, followed by 2 regiments of Skeleton Spearmen. Then we have 2 troops of Revenant Cav. We have 2 hordes of Enslaved Guardian Archers, a Revenant on Undead Great Burrowing Worm with Han's Sanguinary Scripture, a Monolith, 2 troops of Skeleton Deadeye Crossbows, a Soul Snare, 2 Empire of Dust Balefire Catapults, both of whom have the Scarab Jars upgrade, and finally an Undead ASV with the Tome of Darkness because the Cursed High Priest is still overpriced. My thoughts on the army, I think it's pretty strong. I've been wanting to build something a bit more shooting in my Empire of Dust lists lately, and this is about as shooting as I would go, right? Like this is the end of the spectrum, right? Which is the totality of shooting. Now, I'm not sure whether I will keep with this in the future, just because, you know, there's a reason I haven't run Enslaved Guardian Archers, and it's not because they're bad. They're, in fact, an excellent unit. It's just difficult for me to field a lot of them. But, yeah, I really like this list archetype, and I think that someone with, or even if I spent more time playing it, I think it could be a really deadly army. It's very balanced. The only problem with it, I think, is its low amount of surge. But that's just sort of an Empire Dust thing. They pay the most in the game per point of surge ever, right? If you're excluding the Tree Herder from paying for surge because the RC has said they don't, yeah, mathematically Empire Dust just pay the most. So it's difficult to fit a lot of surge in there. But I think that's one of the things I'd probably look at. But yeah, I like the army otherwise. Oh, and then Scarab Jars, there's 2 of them. Really only need to have 1 of them, but I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with the last 10 points, so I just, made sure that both of them have it just for this first game to make sure I'm actually hitting with that shattering as opposed to, maybe messing up my deployment of the 1. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into the scenario. Fool's Gold is a bit of a complex one. You start off with 10 bluff counters, 5 for each player. You must deploy them on your opponent's side of the field. Now, otherwise, they are just objective markers that are placed face down on the field. Now, they must be face down because you get 2 zeros, 2 ones, and 1 2 victory points on each of these counters, right? So you're going to flip them at the end of turn 3. You're going to flip all 10 on the table, and it's going to tell you how much that point is worth, right? So it can be worth 0, 1, or 2. So yeah, it seems like a lot of objectives, and it's not the most fun to deploy, but I do like this scenario. It's a bit more dynamic, which I think is something lacking in Kings of War scenario play. So anyway, let's go into how the scenario looks on the table. So first off, we've got all these objectives. The blue ones are the ones I deployed, so on the side of the table. I've got one in the both corners, and then I have this one here, one in the center-ish, and then that one there. Now all the red ones are the ones my opponent has deployed. This, and this. I will say that I actually set up the terrain for this table. It's mostly my terrain. These are my forests. I haven't finished the trees yet for them, but I just wanted to get them out on the table, and I haven't built the hills just yet, so I had to borrow those from my buddy. But yeah, I set up the table before I knew either what army they were playing or what scenario we're going to get. So I built it to be a little bit more difficult for my shooting army to deal with, right? Like I've got these hills right here. I've got a large impassable right here, just to to limit these firing lanes. So yeah, it's purposely like this. I like how my opponent has set up the objectives. I will say that, like I commonly do when I play Fool's Gold, I just shuffled the objectives in my hand and then put them wherever. So I have no idea what these are worth while I'm playing the game, and it's fun to play that way, if not the most competitive way. But sometimes, games are meant to be fun. So anyway, let's get into the terrain. As I said before, these are the aforementioned height 9 forests without any trees. Then we have 2 height 1 difficult terrain. Then we have 2 height 3 hills, followed by 3 height 2 obstacles. Really, this is 1 height 2 obstacle. It just split into 2 and has room for a monster, maybe a regiment to fit through. Then we have, finally, 2 height 7 buildings. Now, I will say that these small pieces of terrain you're seeing, the scatter terrain that's across the table, these are nothing. They're just for a bit of flavor. We just treated them. You can walk right over them. They in no way impede you, right? They're just for fun. And in fact, we picked them up throughout the game just to make movement a little bit better. But anyway, yeah, if you're curious about what those are, they're nothing. So anyway, let's get into deployment. Starting with the Northern Alliance on the left flank, or at least the left as you would see it in that picture. We start with the Horde of Frostbane Cab with the Meat of Madness. To their right is the Ice Elemental Horde. I forgot to mark it, but back here you can see the Snow Foxes, or the beginnings of a regiment of Snow Foxes. Then to the right of that, we have the Thane with Talinar Standard and Inspiring Talisman. In front of him is Hrim. Then we have to the right of that a Snow Troll Horde with the Chalice of Wrath. These bears are ready to fight. And finally, we'll just draw all over, the Ice Queen with Surge 8, Heal 5, and Conjurer's Staff. I really like this model. I'm sure it's a Mirsha model because that's pretty much the only thing my opponent buys. But anyway, to the right of that, we have the Pack Hunter Regiment, followed by a Cavern Dweller. Then off to the right of that, we have the Huskarl Regiment with the Brew of Haste. I love using these Besticor models for that. I think Patrick Zora Allen did that recently. Besticor are just, the plastic Besticor are great models. So anyway, and there is another regiment of Snow Foxes hiding back there that I forgot to mark. And finally, we have the King on Chimera just chilling out in the treeless woods. So facing off against that, we have directly opposite that King on Chimera, we have my first Revenant Cab Troop, followed by the 2 regiments of Skeleton Spearmen, and finally the first Balefire Catapult with Scarab Jars right behind that. To the right of that, we have the Monolith, being played by I generally run, what was the thing called? the Casket of Souls, I think. I generally run it as my Soul Snare, but it fits perfectly on a 75. I just kind of wanted to see if I like it more as a monolith. So anyway, it's a monolith today. Then we have the second troop of RevCav right there, followed by the 2 hordes of Enslaved Guardians just chilling out in front of them. I know I have at least 4 more to fill out these ranks, but honestly, I don't know what I did with them. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see about this, because Ushabti are like $30 a model. It's pretty nuts. So anyway, off to the, actually this is the far right, so these pictures got a little out of sync, but we have the Revenant on Undead Great Burrowing Worm with Han's Sanguinary Scripture, followed by the first troop of Deadeye Crossbows. Then in the middle, to the left of the Burrowing Worm, we have the Balefire Catapult with Scarab Jars, the second one, and the Undead ASB with the Tome of Darkness, and of course the 2 hordes of Enslaved Guardian Archers. And this is very similar. I have another, I think I only have 3 more of these, but I have enough to run 2 hordes. I just don't know where those, where they are. So just gonna deal with this for now. And finally, in the center of the table, because that's how we finish our picture set, we have the Soul Snare played by one of my random little ratties today, since I didn't have a plan for the Soul Snare otherwise, and the final Deadeye Crossbow troop. So that is it for deployment. Let's go into turn 1. So turn 1 ends up going to the Northern Alliance, and this picture is actually only partially through my opponent's movement, because I wanted to talk about deployment real quick, as I've never played, as I said before, I've never played Empire Dust as a shooting line before, and when I was setting this up, I started setting up this left flank, and then I realized that I have 2 hordes of Enslaved Guardian Archers, and I was like, 2 might be too many, because I really want to get the second Balefire over here, and then I also want these, right? But I just don't have the room to really use any shooting lanes in a table. Like, this is a table with a fair amount of terrain, but it's not particularly tight, right? Like, there are firing lanes, and pretty good ones, but not for this amount. So I was like, I don't know about that. And then I also messed up a bit of deployment here, where I deployed the monolith a little bit too far forward, and the second RevCav troop couldn't be here to help chaff my Enslaved Guardians, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Anyway, let's get into turn 1, Northern Alliance. Yeah, here is how the end of their movement looks. On the left, you can see, yeah, everything just moves forward to stay out of charge range of my big guy, the Burrowing Worm. They're well out, and then also position themselves to hide from my shooting for the most part. So again, this wall is on top of a hill, so it's actually a height 5 wall for Hrim. So I can see him with a lot of my stuff, but it'll get cover for, you know, all these units that are not a catapult. So it's not a great target. Same thing with this, right? It's a height 4 unit, but it's behind the hill. So I have shooting targets, but really I just have these trolls who have wandered forward and made a bit of a mistake, I think, because all of this can see it without cover. So I'm just going to fire everything into the trolls and try to delete them. And then off here on my right, a similar sort of standoff. My opponent is keeping the Cavern Dweller behind the hill just to make sure that it has cover, while the Huskarls have decided to touch the hill, so they will have cover as well, but that doesn't matter against my catapult. So I think this might be a bit of a mistake. There's no reason to put the Huskarls fully on the hill, unless you think I'm going to rush forward, but probably not going to. And then the Lord on Chimera just stays out of charge range of the Revenant Cav and just sits there. So let's get into my opponent's shooting. First off, we have the Walruses, the Ice Elementals, being surged forward. They actually got a really nice surge here because it pushed them, in the next picture you can see it, so it pushed them exactly kind of where they wanted to go. They still have cover due to being in the difficult terrain, although they probably don't need it with the hill here. But they got the cover there, and then they also didn't go so far forward that I can just charge. With 1 extra inch of surge, I could just, you know, charge into them right now. So yeah, it was a bit of a risky one, I think, but it paid off for my opponent in the end. So that is it for turn 1 for the Northern Alliance. Let's see what the Empire Dust can do. So the Empire Dust on the right flank just sort of waddles forward a little bit, just staying out of charge range. I think the dragon can definitely charge into these Enslaved Guardians, but I doubt that the dragon will be able to one-round me. It only has the 10 attacks. So, and it has elite natively, but it doesn't have like a Mesa Crushing or anything like that. So I'm not particularly worried. And then I also I made a mild mistake here with the spears, because I generally run skeleton warriors, but I all my skeletons have spears, so I was like, well, why not try the spears out? And I've really been liking phalanx lately in my armies, so I brought them in and then immediately forgot that they had phalanx, right? So I placed them a little bit too far into this terrain, because I'm like, oh yeah, if he charges, you'll be -1 to hit. But yeah, I already have phalanx and it doesn't stack, so I should have probably pushed a little bit more aggressively with these guys. But otherwise, I like everything that's going on here on the right flank. And on my left flank, yeah, everything's just taking aim at the snow trolls. These guardian archers roll insanely well this turn, which, you know, makes up for both the catapults miss, because, you know, that's what catapults do, right? So both the catapults miss, these guys roll insane, as does the soul snare, which lands 7 wounds out of 9 attacks on 4s and 4s. I like that. And poof, the trolls are no more. Got them to double 1 town pretty easily. And that is it for turn 1. As you can see, the rest of my left flank just readies itself to get charged, hopefully piecemeal, because all of my opponent's units have different charge ranges, right? Like these guys have a charge of 16, these guys are 12, this is 14. I'm hoping that my opponent will just send 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, right? So I can deal with that a little bit easier. Now, I have made a slight mistake with my turn 1. This is just a bit of a brain fart. I placed these archers, or not archers, crossbowmen. I realized that they're within charge range of the Frostbane Cav, and I was like, yeah, I'll just let them have it. If they want to charge them, go nuts, and then I'll just pivot this guy, right, to be able to countercharge them. But then I was looking at the snow trolls, I walked it back, and then I just didn't move it at all. So it just sat there instead. I didn't pivot it. So if these guys charge in, they're just going to have a free charge, which is a huge mistake. If I was going to do that, I might as well just walk backwards and take the pot shot shots instead. So anyway, that's mistake 1 of the turn, but let's go into turn 2 to see if the Northern Alliance can make some as well. So turn 2 Northern Alliance, yeah, these guys do go into the crossbowmen. I can just barely see their edge, so if they double 1 it, I'll have a juicy flank charge here, but otherwise, not in the best position. The Snow Foxes just run in front. They're a great unit. They've got that stealthy, and then they are, I don't believe they're actually 50% on the hill, so they'll also have cover from any shooting I throw their way. So I really like this Snow Fox placement, except for one thing, which is, again, my opponent has put the Ice Elementals just slightly too close. And I think this is actually a problem from the previous turn where the Snow Foxes didn't move as far forward as they could have or should have, just because if I waver these Snow Foxes, they're not going to be able to nimble pivot and then get out of the way, right? And it's the same thing that happened in our previous game, which I didn't get a battle report out for because all the pictures ended up corrupting. But yeah, the Snow Foxes, you just want to make sure you leave enough room that you can nimble out of the way for your combat units. So anyway, the rest of the force, my opponent does move forward with these walruses a little too far, but that is for a good reason, which is to get some shots onto my big cat, onto my burrowing worm. So that's the plan there. And yeah, over here on the right flank, they're just holding back a little bit. The dragon has placed itself within 10 inches of its center point, within 10 inches of one of my regiments of spears, just to hit them with chill, because it'll knock them down to speed 4 and they can't charge. I'll have to surge them if I want to get that charge going, and I only have surge 8, so I'll need 6. That's a lot to ask. My opponent does adjust this after the picture, because he realizes a little later in his turn, he's like, oh right, those Rev Cav can just charge me in the flank. Let's not have that. So he adjusts a little bit just to make sure that the Rev Cav will actually have to go through the terrain and hit them in the front if they want to charge. Even if they could. I'm not sure they could. But anyway, that's what my opponent does there. And then the Huskarls just take over the hill, sitting behind the Snow Foxes, but it's the same thing with the Snow Foxes being a little too close to the Huskarls. And if I waver these now, they're just going to kind of box the Huskarls in, especially because of the unit placement here with the Cavern Dweller, which is pretty good. It's protective, right? Because they're keeping the Cavern Dweller just barely behind the Pack Hunters and the Huskarls, so it's impossible for my Enslaved Guardians to charge them. But I think a very similar thing could have been accomplished just by moving this forward and allowing 1 unit of Enslaved Guardians to charge instead of 2, right? Because you could have moved to the edge with the Snow Foxes, said I couldn't slide over anymore. You can probably tank 1 of those charges, and it would stop a double charge onto these pack owners. So, just my 2 cents. Anyway, let's go into shooting. So we have, I guess, just showing off this charge. Yeah, I'm sure these crossbowmen will be just fine. And here we go. We're starting with the Walruses and Hrim firing into my Burrowing Worm. They do 7 wounds, which is pretty good. I'm not sure that's above average. It's like probably a little below. It's like 4.5 for these guys, and then 2.5 for these guys. So it's not the I mean, that's exactly 7, so it's not the end of the world. But I was not anticipating taking 7 damage there, so a bit of a mistake for me. Always calculate before you move, or in my case, just move your model at all. So anyway, we go into the rest of the shooting, which is just the Chimera firing, trying to get that 1 wound for the freeze effect, and doesn't get it. So my opponent actually only hit with 1 attack, and then it failed the wound, and I'm like, yes, skeleton spearmen are known for their toughness, so look out. And anyway, yeah, these guys get deleted in close combat, and then my opponent adjusts, as you can see, to dodge any charges from my Revenant. I'm not sure I would take that charge. I know I probably would. Yeah, so again, this comes back to bite me in the butt, which is a front charge here is probably okay, just because I have a plan for these guys here, and I'd be out of Hrim's line of sight. So yeah, it probably would have been good. But moving your models, that's passe. That's 2000 and late. So anyway, here is the end of turn 2 for the Northern Alliance. Looking pretty good, except for, I guess, again, except for the notes I made on the right here. And of course, this dragon can be charged by skeletons. Not the best. So we go into turn 2 for the Empire Dust. Turn 2 Empire Dust, I don't move forward at all. That's for sure on the left here. I actually swing some of my units back, and that's for a very precise sort of a movement here. These guys, I do clean this up in a bit, but I move the cat backwards out of charge range of both the Walruses and Hrim. And then put these guys into the front. So if they want to charge me, it's a front charge. Then I make sure to leave these guys in the flank of my Enslaved Guardian Archers, but my big cat, the Burrowing Worm, sidles up on the corner to make that impossible. They can also charge into the flank of my Balefire Catapult, which is whatever, it's, what is that, 90 attacks? It's crazy. You'll kill it, but you're in the flank of these guys, and it's the same thing with these corners lining up, and it being impossible to hit the side or the area that I'm not covering, just because they can't get around or they can't fit, right? And then I walk these guys back a little bit because they are in charge range of Hrim and the Ice Elementals, and I don't want that, but I leave these guys up. So Hrim, I think, can charge these Enslaved Guardians, but it's not the best charge, as I've got some shooting to throw his way, and then I could maybe grind it in, and if he doesn't kill the cat. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff that can go on here, so the idea is just to pull back a little bit with all this, and hope my opponent can't do too much with it. Now, they can charge, these guys can charge into my Soul Snare as well, but that is a big mistake if my opponent goes for that, because even if they wipe them out, I just have all the charges I want. It's almost impossible to position, or might even be impossible, to position yourself in such a way where I can't get a surge with this unit, or just a native charge from this one into the flank. So, not the best idea. But yeah, we'll see about that. I'm going to start throwing my shooting. The plan is to waver the Snow Foxes. I want 5 or 6 damage on them because they're currently a 10-12 due to Talinar standard. So I'm just going to go for a waver. If I don't get the waver, it's not, I've not made it worse, right? Like I planned my turn assuming that I won't get that waver. But if I do, it's pretty good. Off here on the right, I get some charges off. So first off, on the left, I charge both the Enslaved Guardians into the regiment of Pack Hunters. That's just to make sure that they die, on top of the fact that I'm not too worried about being up here with both of them. I want to be here. I want to be able to deal with this stuff. I send these spears into the front of snow foxes just to try to do the same thing. Like, I'm not looking to kill these guys. They're only a 9/11, and if I get that waiver, it's huge because the Huskarls will be left with nothing to do. I go for these spears into the dragon. It is a hinder charge. I've got 15 attacks, on 6s and 5s. It's not the best, but if I land 1 wound, it's enormous. This dragon will be pretty much completely neutered. And even if that fails, the only things the dragon can charge are the Rev Cav, the Monolith, and probably the flank of these guys. But or just charge into here. So I'm not really worried about any of this stuff dying. As long as it's not the Enslaved Guardians, it's fine. And I move forward with the Monolith a little bit to make sure all these units are within 6 inches, and that's about it. Then, just showing off the charges. I've got these, also a hinder charge into the Snow Foxes, and the final one. And over here, yes, I do manage to kill off that Pack Hunter regiment pretty easily. I back up with this unit because I was actually slightly behind the Foxes, and then these guys could do a corkscrew into my flank, so didn't want that. But any distance was good, so I backed up 1, just turned these guys to face the line. They did take 2 wounds in the previous turn from the Pack Hunters. They have Life Leech 1, so they're down to 1 wound. And over here, the spears manage 3 wounds onto the Snow Foxes and get a waiver, which is great. It's exactly what I like to do to Snow Foxes. And over here, I manage the 1 wound, and I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I need. Now, you might be wondering, what are these Revenant Cav doing? Well, that is because I was sitting there talking to my opponent, and I'm like, man, is there a way I can get the Revenant Cav into the flank? And there was, with an exact 8-inch surge. And my Monolith happens to have Surge 8, and I'm like, that could be fun. It's not a good idea, right? This is a terrible tactical plan, but again, sometimes it's just fun to go for stuff. So I do, and I roll a 6. I actually rolled a 7, but I cocked one of the dice, so I had to go away, and I end up with 6 inches forward, which is terrible. This is not where I want to be. A smarter tactical play, again, is just to hold these guys back, make sure that the Disordered Dragon can't charge you, and then you can just set up some flank charges when the dragon has to go back into spears, which is not what they want to do, right? Like, they've got 10 attacks, and they only hit me on 4s with Elite, and the crushing is whatever, and I'm a dash 15. Go for it. But anyway, that's what the Revenant Cav are doing, in case you were wondering. And here's the end of the turn. Now, I will mention I did manage to get the waiver on the Snow Foxes, which was very nice. I think I put 5 wounds on them and then only wavered them due to Talinar standard, so thanks, buddy. And then the rest of my shooting, unfortunately, does not go well. I fire everything at Hrym that I can, and I manage, I think, 3 wounds, which is not great, because I did this in my first salvo, and I'm like, 5 is fine. And then I think I did the 3 wounds. No, I must have fired this at the Snow Foxes. There's no reason to fire other. Yeah, so I fired the Soul Snare into the Snow Foxes, and I didn't do too well. I only got 3 with that, so I could only heal my cat for 3, which sucked. But then the second bit, which was these guys, which was 4 shots on 6s, managed the 2 wounds, so that's pretty good. But then, the hordes just do Bupkis, as do the 2 catapults, which miss again. It's not what you want from your catapults, so you don't want to miss the first 2 turns. That's bad. And then the aforementioned Monolith Surge. So that's about it, and let's move into turn 3. So turn 3 for the Northern Alliance. First off, we have the Frostfang Cav going into the front of my cat. I have 4 wounds on me already. They've got 30 attacks. That's, like 10 wounds on average? That's a 4 to kill me. I don't quite get why the Burrowing Worm is -1 nerve over the Flying Worm. I get that, it's cheaper, it's got all those things, but, the main difference is in the attack profile, right? Like, the Burrowing Worm has Brutal and 12 attacks, while the Flying only has the 10. Otherwise, they're pretty much similar. Obviously, speed 7, so on and so forth. But why the -1 nerve? Anyway, so this is not pretty for me, but it is a 4+ to hit unit. It could flub, right? On the rest of the table, my opponent decides to go with discretion and not try to get any charges with Hrim, since the Snow Foxes were wavered and trapping the Ice Elementals. They could walk over and go for some bomb charges, but bomb surge charges, but I don't think they could even get one. Like, they'd need 8 inches, and to be able to get past these guys, that's not going to happen. So they just move to shoot at my Soul Snare, because Icy Breath ignores Stealthy. And a quick aside, I don't know if it should, right? Like, one of the big differences between Fireball and Lightning Bolt is that Lightning Bolt ignores Stealthy, right? Which I don't quite get. It didn't do that. The last edition, they made Fireball and Lightning Bolt take Stealthy negatives. But then they changed it this time, and I'm like, Lightning Bolt was already the better spell than Fireball, so why are you punishing Fireball even more? And then with Icy Breath also ignoring it, and I'm like, what is the point of Fireball? Besides the idea that, like, you don't have access to anything but Fireball, which is fine. Like, it's great in Forces of the Abyss. I think Fireball's fine. But here I'm like, why does it ignore that? Anyway, it's fine though. I'm not particularly worried. This is a lot of shots, so it could go poorly, but you know, I believe in my Soul Snare. You'll be fine. And over here on the right, yeah, the Cavern Dweller decides to charge into the weaker Enslaved Guardians because they have 1 wound on them. So we're going to go for that. The Snow Foxes are trapped because they are wavered. The Huskarls just back up a little bit. Just, you know, the Snow Foxes have it. Just to make sure that these guys can't flank charge them without any due process. The Dragon goes into my Revenant Cav. Again, it's bad. It's not something I should have set up, but it's not the worst. Just because on average they do about 6 wounds, and I'm a dash 14, so I'll probably be fine. And here we go with the shooting. So Hrim and these Walruses line up. They do 8 wounds to me, which I think is about the average, but that'll be a 7 twice to kill me, so that's 27% again. Hopefully they can't hit it. And here's the end of turn shot. So yes, my Soul Snare stays alive. That's great. The cat blows up. It's less than great, but this is just poor positioning by me, I think. And, you know, it's pretty obvious that it was, but yeah, this is just poor positioning. So, and off here on the right, things are also kind of a mixed bag. The Cavern Dweller actually rolls really well on its hits and wounds. I think it sinks all, but it gets like 9 attacks and sinks like 8 wounds, which is pretty good, but doesn't manage to kill me, which is great for me and pretty fine. Then the Dragon does 6 wounds to my Revenant Cav, and of course just rolls the hard 8, kills him off. And I'm like, well, yeah. But yeah, this is a bit of a mixed bag. It should be fine, right? As long as... yeah, I'm definitely still in this game. This left flank is getting worrisome for me. I'm going to need to be able to do something here, but the right flank is pretty over for my opponent, I think. Once I get... as long as I can get 1 wound on the Dragon with some unhindered spears. And here we go with Empire Dust turn 3. So I start with an Enslaved Guardian Archer charge into the Frostbane Cav. It's not really what I want to do. Enslaved Guardian Archers are actually pretty good at charging. They're a 4+ melee with Crush 1, but I'm charging through difficult terrain, so I'm going to be on 5s and 4s, but it's just the best I have to offer. I need to block these up a bit better, and yeah, I wish I had my other troop. I wish I'd held it back a little bit more, but I didn't, so here we are. And I do the same thing that I did in the previous turn, which is blocking charges to my Enslaved Guardian Archer Horde. I block, so this unit is in their flank, can't charge the flank because they can't fit due to where my catapult is. Hrim is in the front, and then I put these crossbowmen on the corner here to make it so they can't make anything but a corner charge to get to that. And then I place my Soul Snare here to make it so Hrim cannot just go past and pivot there and charge me. So it is impossible for Hrim to charge here. It's impossible for the Ice Elementals to charge there. So at least I've got the best I've got going. I'm going to try to get Hrim this turn, especially as my opponent's heal did Bupkis, healed 0, so it's still at 3 wounds. Hrim is a dash 21, though. Ridiculous. But if I can get Hrim here, I think I still have a good chance. Basically, I'm just going to try to... yeah, I'm going to try to kill off Hrim, and then if I can hold for 2 rounds, that might be Well, I wouldn't if the Ice Elementals charge, but if these guys natively, or just go in here alone and charge into me and I can hold for another round, that would be amazing. Obviously, killing would be crazy, but anyway, that's the plan. Oh, I will say, I do take, I forgot to move this guy, and after this picture is taken, I place him over here, so I'm inspiring this stuff, just to make sure that these guys are actually inspired. And over here on the right, I go for the double Enslaved Guardian charge on the Cavern Dweller. One in the rear, one in the front. That should be dead there. The spears here go for the foxes, just trying to get a quick kill. These guys, yeah, just going for a waiver. That's all we really need. And if I can kill the foxes right here and get a decent overrun, I can also block the Huskarls from doing anything but charging into my spears. So yeah, that's going to be the plan there. I'm not sure what to do with these Revenant Cav. I'm not going to do what I did, with the other ones and just let them die for no reason. But honestly, this side is looking really good. I probably should have turned them around and walked off by this point, but it looks like I didn't even move them. I might have just left another unit. Let's not talk about that. So anyway, let's go see how some stuff goes. Yeah, so we've got that charge going for us. And over here, and finally that. Yeah, I managed 5 wounds onto the Frostbane Cav. That's actually really good. 5s and 4s with 18 attacks. I'll take 5 wounds. That's great. I did roll a double 1 here, and of course, you got to take a picture, right? Even when it's completely superfluous, but got the double 1 anyway. The whole game's forfeit. And here's the end of the turn shot. I didn't get that many picks this turn just because it's getting a little late and all that, but I completely flub against Harem here. I mean, I don't completely flub. I get a couple of wounds, but I fired everything at Harem. I've got 4 shots on 6s here with Elite, then I've got 18 on 5s with Pierce 2, then I've got these 2, I've got this, I've got all these shots, and I do nothing with it. So that's very unfortunate. Harem will be ready to wreck me, but this left flank is a problem of my own making, which gets worse. Well, we'll talk about the right real quick, which is I managed to kill off the Cavern Dweller. I then place my units to make it so the Huskarls can charge me, but the dragon cannot fit, which is great because I failed to do 1 wound to the dragon because, going through the terrain is what made the skeletons feel special. Charging normally, nah, they're not about that. So this dragon's completely unhindered, which is pretty bad. I do manage to kill the Snow Foxes. I pivot my unit, like you can see, to block off any possible dragon double charge. But it doesn't really matter because it turns out randomizing your tokens is not a great way to play. And this entire right side of the field only has this 1 2-point token. All of these were 0s, and then all of the 1s are over here with a 2, and I am going to crumble out of this real fast. So it is not pretty. I guess it's pretty something. It's pretty bad. So we'll just see what my opponent can do with their turn 4. So turn 4 for the Northern Alliance, we just grab a picture. Is this? Yeah, so this is after movement. So first off, we've got on the right, the dragon charging into my catapult. Again, there are no tokens over here, so none of these units matter, and my opponent realizes that immediately. And just goes for a catapult kill real quick because it's the deepest my opponent can get with an easy kill. It can then just pivot, right? And then next turn it can just fly 20 and try to grab this, or set up to grab it. So yeah, pretty good plan there. And then the Huskarls charge into the front of my Enslaved Guardians because why not? Killing these spears don't matter. The Enslaved Guardians are my actual damage in this army. So, and these spears are so out of position now that we know that there are no tokens over here. That doesn't really matter over there. And then on the left, we've got the Ice Elementals just staying to try to kill off my Soul Snare, which is fair enough. And then we've got Harem because, oh no, I did 1 wound to Harem. Oof, that's real bad. I thought I did more than that, but apparently I didn't. So yeah, Harem goes for a charge. So Harem takes the flank charge onto these guys. They are pretty much toast. So, we'll see. And then we've got that. These guys take the counter charge. Talonai Standard and the Queen just come around the other side of the hill because my shooting is starting to disintegrate. And the Snow Foxes are just sitting behind the hill now. Because there's no reason to go forward. In fact, there are 2 1-point tokens back here, so even more reason to stay back. And here we go with the, charges. We got that charge, and I'm sure I'll be fine there. And here we go with the shooting. Yeah, they blow up my my poor war engine here. The soul snare, I think I think he did like 7 or 8 wounds to it. So it was a double one to kill it, and just got it. And here we go in the combat. Yep, that's also a double one. Actually, it wasn't a double one, but it was pretty low. Hrim rolled in there with rolled a 1 for his extra attack, so had 22 attacks, and I think did 4 wounds. Just did terribly. But these guys, like they've done in every turn so far, just rolled out the box. I think they did 15 or 16 wounds, so they just walk right through me, which is not that, it's not that unlikely. The Enslaved Guardian Archers aren't really a Def 6 unit. And yeah, the dragon easily kills off my war engine. And here we go with the end of turn 4. The only unit that got charged and survived was my Enslaved Guardians, which is fair enough. I was fighting Huskarl, so I'll take that. But yeah, that's not a pretty picture. All my units are dead. So here we go with turn 4 for the Empire Dust. Turn 4 Empire Dust. I just try to kill Hrim off. I could move, but I've done all I can again. This guy just moves to again block the flank for the Enslaved Guardian Archers. They cannot be charged in the flank because these guys cannot. So if these guys turn to try to charge me, right, they'll end up clipping this guy, which they cannot land on top of him. And then if they charge and kill him and do the overrun because he is an individual, they will end up hitting my catapult instead. So this is impossible. It's the only thing that can hurt it is Hrim, because I'm also out of line of sight of this. And then I left this unit here to block the front, so that's probably also impossible. So anyway, we're just going to try to shoot and kill Hrim. This has nothing to shoot at now, because everything's within 12 inches, so that's great. But I've got these archers, and Hrim's on 4 wounds, so we'll see. And off here on the right, I turn my Revcav just to stare down the dragon. Again, I'm just going to try to ground it. I turn the spears around. I go for the flank charge with these spears. I double front charge the Huskarls. I could have started turning one around to go after the objectives on the other side of the table, but I just didn't see the point in it. And yep, just showing off that combat, I guess. And here we go. Yeah, I do manage to kill off this unit on the hill, but I rolled this combat after I rolled the dragon, where I did manage to successfully get a surge through, but I did 0 hits. So yeah, the dragon is fully ambulatory, so I had to turn these guys to face the dragon, which is not what you want. And over here, yeah, the all the shooting does go into Hrim, and I do manage to pick him up, so that's really great. And here we go with the end of turn 4 for the Empire Dust, and in fact, the end of the game, because I called it here. Hrim is gone. Like I said, this guy can easily pick up these 2 units. These guys can pick up this, and then can also go for a surge charge if they want. They don't have Pathfinder, though, so meh. And then the dragon, because it can fly, can just pick up whatever unit it wants. It'll probably try to pick up the monolith right now. But yeah, there's just not a whole lot I can do at this point, because again, all the objectives are on this side of the table, and I'm about to lose all the units that I have over here. So I'll probably have one more turn with the Enslaved Guardian Archers, but not a great charge turn, because again, I will be hindered, and then not a great shooting turn, because I mean, I can shoot the Ice Elementals, I guess, but they're a dash 18 due to Talinar standard. So yeah, it's just not great for me, and we just call it there. So I could go home. I also we've been having some flooding problems at home, so I'd been getting some sweet pictures from my girlfriend. She was like, just you finish your game, but come home when you can. And I'm like, yeah, I'll just come home now. So anyway, that is the end of the game. It was enjoyable for me because, as I said before, I've not run a lot of shooting in my Empire Dust, and I don't think I played it very well, obviously. I mean, don't randomize your tokens, don't go for other stuff, but even ignoring the just kind of fun stuff I tried to do, the tactical stuff wasn't the best, which I could improve. I think that I'll start walking my list back toward, if combat's over here and shooting's over here, I'll start walking my list back towards combat. I do like some of the shooting, so I'll probably keep the catapults, I'll probably keep one of these hordes. I'll try to keep these guys, they're great. Really good unit. But I think I'll probably try to cut the other horde. That one's not that great. I'll try to cut one of the scarabs. Just take that out. I really liked the skeleton spearmen regiments. I think as a horde they're probably a little too expensive, but as regiments they're amazing. And I'll probably try to get these guys down to one horde just so I can get all 6 models down on one unit, just to make it look a little nicer, right? But yeah, I hope you guys liked it, and until next time, bye.